Is Marquez Valdes-Scantling the next great Saints wide receiver? How the New Orleans Saints found hidden gem. Fellas, let's pump the brakes, okay? The backdrop to today's video, off the bench, Saints with T-Bob, Hebert and Jacob Hester. Shocking stuff here. I mean, MVS has been good, sure. MVS has 6 catches as a Saint, okay? So, maybe it's a little early to say he's the next great Saints wide receiver. He is certainly doing a good job of filling in the role of our kind of burner, deep threat guy, explosive play guy. So for that, tip of the cap, no doubt about it. So good. Glad we found him. Not totally sure why it took so long for us to say, you know what? Maybe Bub Means and Mason Tipton being our 1 and 2 probably isn't the move. Now, I guess you could say, like, we did try and do this. Cedric Wilson, he got hurt. Okay, whatever. But, yeah, I mean, MVS is filling a gap. No doubt about it.
The site for all of your Saints coverage. I've been a proud subscriber for years now. And, well, I mean, what a heady time to be a New Orleans on Football subscriber as the age of the Rizzler is here.
There it is.
Saints are 2-0. Falcons are imploding.
Yep.
Playoff talks abound.
Yep.
Nick, the Saints are back.
Yes.
How's it feel in NOF headquarters?
Nicholas from the headquarters, no doubt about it. There he is. So the whole gang's here. I mean, this is really this is what it's all about here. We got T-Bob, Nick Underhill, Jacob Hester, and of course me, the face of the franchise.
Hello?
I won 2 games. Everybody was buying Super Bowl tickets, so I don't know yet. I need to see him beat to kind of really buy in. If you want to say back, like I think they got to get 2 out of 3 against LA, Green Bay, and Washington.
Agreed. Nick, very astute. Yes, I agree with that. I've been saying that it's kind of the path that we have. If we want a legitimate talk about playoffs or a legitimate talk about the division or a legitimate talk about the wild card or a legitimate talk about even the future of this team, you go 2-3 there. That's it. It starts with the Rams because you can't go 2-3. Or I guess you could. Backtrack that. I was going to say you can't go 2-3 without beating the Rams, but you can. But that would require you to go on the road to Green Bay and win in prime time. Beat the Rams, and we can talk as far as I'm concerned.
Like there's still some sloppy stuff going on. Like it feels better. It looks better. I think the stakes are lower, so you don't really care that there's like a mistake here or there.
I'll tell you why it looks better, feels better, is because people like offense more than defense, or people feel offense more than defense, because it's so much worse or so much harder to watch a bad offense. Like when you're watching a slog, just 2 yards a carry or 3 yards per play or just nothing, just horizontal passes or 3 and outs or whatever, it's much harder just on the viewer, just on the eyeballs. Because if you're watching a defense just give up big plays, as long as you're, like, what do we call it, ladies and gentlemen? If your defense is giving up big plays, but your offense is executing big plays, what is that called in NFL terminology? A shootout. Shootouts are fun, right? 57-56, fun game, right? That's exciting to watch. It's not as exciting to watch when you lose 13-0, right? So that's why I think it feels better, because the offense has been better. The offense has been good. I mean, the offense last game, 8 yards per play. Game before that, 7 yards per play. Game before that, 5.8 yards per play. Game before that, 5.4 yards per play. So we're trending upwards offensively, and people feel that and understand that. So that's why I think this has been a bit more of a fun experience, along with the winning, of course. But the defense has still been pretty bad. I mean, the defense against Cleveland, yes, they gave up 400 yards to Jameis Winston through the air. At least we held our own when it came to the run defense. But the offense has been pretty solid.
Or whatever,
Sure.
But like, yeah, it's definitely back a little bit, but like back. Like I gotta see a Rams one, I think.
Well, okay, so maybe the most interesting to me, because I'm with you, Nick, right? Like I'm being a bit tongue in cheek here. Who knows if this is all just nothing? But like, but I do have like it felt good. You know, I didn't want to lose to the Browns, even though I could argue that maybe it was the best thing for draft. I don't want to lose to the Browns. Okay.
I think I'm going to make a whole video on the whole draft, losing for a draft pick thing. if you are still rooting for the Saints to lose to boost the draft pick, wake your ass up. That's all I'm going to say. Wake your ass up, ladies and gentlemen, because you got to be asleep. You got to be fully asleep, all right, to think that losing, boosting the draft pick, all that stuff is going to equate to anything. All right, so root for wins, support the team, and wake up.
Okay, they suck. And so that felt good. But one thing that this team has done is a lot of the play has remained the same, or like you said, there's still mistakes. They have found ways to finish. And is that just maybe luck or I mean, because it's a small sample size, or do you believe that Rizzi has instilled some sort of processes or changed things that are leading to the ability to finish the last couple of games?
I mean, Rizzi in the Atlanta game, Rizzi had a fourth down decision that I thought was wrong, but I mean, the 4th and 2 with Taysom is a good example. Like 4th and 2, go for it, leads to a Taysom touchdown, could have easily kicked a field goal. So, you know, I'm not going to say it's all Rizzi, but it does seem that some of those operational processes and all that has benefited him greatly, or has benefited the Saints greatly since he has been the head coach. I don't know if it's like, I mean, I'm not saying he's Vince Lombardi, but I think it has been better.
I think the thing is, I think he's instilled confidence, and I think that's a very real thing. One of the things that some of the players were telling me before, like, they just didn't feel like there was confidence in the team, confidence from the top, confidence on the sideline. Like when things would start to go wrong, they get into a situation and then they're in the huddle looking at each other like, well, here we go again. Like it's all falling apart again. And, you know, now I don't think they feel that way. And I think that actually matters. Like in any job, you know, like if we're having trouble getting on this teams here at the start, and I'm like, oh, well, we're going to figure it out and we're going to get on, like, we're going to get on it at some point. And if you're like, oh, you know, this isn't ever going to work, like you start defeating yourself and then you don't find a way, and you pick up the phone and you make the phone call, and we aren't on camera right now. Like, I think in any job, when there's a belief in the system and the process and the leadership, and there's a positive than negative vibe and not a self-defeating attitude, like it helps, and you're going to find a way to make things work. And I think Rizzi has brought some of that in a major way. And I think that stuff does matter, because these last 2 weeks, there was a moment in both of them where just on residual Saints PTSD, like I look over at Chip and I'm like, oh, they're going to lose this game. And then they don't. They find a way to win now. Whereas before there was that moment where it's like, oh, it's over. Like something went bad. It's never going to happen for them. So I think that has been the biggest change.
That is definitely something. Like that's kind of one of those unquantifiable things, but it certainly exists. I mean, if you play golf, like if you visualize you messing up the shot, you are probably going to mess that shot up. Or if you're playing with somebody who's like really tense or just really, negative or whatever, like even that atmosphere can just ruin your round or ruin whatever, versus like having the right guy in the cart or whatever to just kind of boost morale. Quantifiable? No. Exact science? No. But it does exist. And especially in those moments, especially in the moments where it's like, oh, well, we lost, versus whatever the opposite is, whatever Rizzi has instilled that Allen did not.
Which position group do you feel like over the last, I know it's a small sample size, but which position group do you feel like over these last 2 weeks has really either gotten to a point where you thought they would be in the preseason or just overall improved the most?
Defensive line. I thought the defensive lines played pretty well. Granted, it's the Falcons and the Browns, but I think we've just seen a little bit more from the Chase Youngs of the world and the Brian Brzezis of the world and the Carl Grandersons of the world. Demario Davis had a resurgence against the Browns, so some combination of that is what I would say.
I think the defensive line has improved the most, but I still don't think it's enough. Like I still think they're lacking some talent there, and they aren't making enough like impact plays earlier in the game, but they are making some impact plays now, and I think that's been a huge change, and it's a definite improvement for them. But I still think that's top of my list going into the offseason as far as needs. I could say O-line because Eric McCoy is just freaking incredible, but like I don't think that's anything like Rizzi has done or anything. But
that's what we were saying in the stands. We were like, is Eric McCoy calling plays? Like I know he calls protections, but does he actually have the offensive coordinator headset on? Because the games he has been in, game 1, game 2, Cleveland game, until he got taken out of that game, the play calling is totally different. Like, we are razzle-dazzle. We are razzle-dazzle all over the place. It's Derek Carr on jet motion sweeps. It's Taysom Hill. It's reverse passes. It's double passes. It's Derek Carr designed runs. I mean, it's just a completely different looking team.
Yeah, I think D-line's up a little bit, but I would say like corners down, wide receivers down a little bit, although I really like Valdes-Scantling, and I think you could maybe make an argument that there's things he does that's, I'm not saying he's better than Rashid Shaheed. I just think.
Oh, Nick, don't. Now, don't get yourself in trouble. Okay, I said the same thing after game 1, and I had a lot of people coming at the king. I had a lot of people coming at the face of the franchise. Pause. Ooh, that was a big pause. And again, guys, I'm not saying that Rashid Shaheed isn't good. I like Rashid Shaheed. It just shows you that Rashid Shaheed is limited, and Rashid Shaheed isn't a traditional number 2 or a traditional even wide receiver. And in his silo, he's awesome. MVS is in that silo. Deep guy, explosive, take the top off the defense, beat the safeties, whatever. In that world, they can be sweet. When is Rashid not sweet? When I'm watching him on fade routes. Now, is that, you could argue he shouldn't be in that position. Is that on Kubiak? Is that on Carr? I don't know. But, I do like what MVS has going on here.
There's some things he does that are better than Rashid Shaheed overall. I would take Shaheed, but I think MVS should be part of this group going forward. I think that was a really, really good find for them. Tight ends, a group that's stepping up now too quite a bit. And
yeah, they are. Foster and Juwan were really good against the Browns.
I think that's more.
Foster's been really good, I think. I mean, not really good, but Foster's been good this season.
Need than anything, but those guys stepping up in the void, I think, has been huge. Foster Moreau had a great game last week. I mean, he lost a play due to a penalty too. And Juwan Johnson has made some good plays as well. So they're starting to get going a little bit. But I'm most encouraged, I think, by the D-line right now. But I still don't think. I think
they're not great.
It was still not good enough, but it's better than it was.
Real quick on MVS, it is interesting because we kind of joke the Saints wide receivers room is a real bad news Bears crew, right?
True.
Just a bunch of rejects.
Yeah. Yes.
But MVS is like the most legitimate NFL guy of that bunch. And now I love the stories. I mean, rejects and I'm loving watching these guys have success. But have you talked to MVS, or has he spoken on what it feels like to now be like the guy, something that he's never been in his career, where it's like, hey, you're the best guy we got. Like, we're going to rely on you. We're going to feature you.
But they also don't. Again, he's not getting 10 targets for 8 catches and, he has 6 catches. Yes, they're explosive plays. Yes, a couple of them have deep balls or whatever, but he's not really, he's not really the, hey, we're relying on you. Hey, you are the guy. He's the best wide receiver we have, but they are relying much more on Foster Moreau, Taysom Hill, Juwan Johnson. They're relying much more on those guys than they are on MVS. MVS is the answer to the, take the top off the defense, but we're not, he himself is not the number one.
No, I haven't asked him that specifically, but when we're back in there, I'm gonna write that story because it's a good idea and I'm stealing it from you.
Good, go for it. I would love to read it. I steal all your ideas all the time, so that's fine.
He's a great guy, a local, lived here for a while. He just has a good attitude. He has a good way about him. But look, the thing I like about him is that just you watch him and you see a feel for the game. On that touchdown, he knew to kind of sit in the zone and not just run himself out of space. And
well, that's something too. When the Saints had the Bub Means, Mason Tipton, Spencer Rattler, Connor McGovern, thing going on here, you're looking around, you're like, I mean, these guys have never even really played, much less against the Chiefs, much less against the Denver Broncos, much less in these moments, in these environments. Having, I don't want to say veterans, but having just NFL level players, having guys who have done it, who have been on rosters, who have seen how this works, who have existed in the league. I mean, these guys, like Bub Means and Mason Tipton, they didn't even see it at a high college level. They haven't even felt it in that world. It's one thing, Georgia, whatever. Georgia plays Texas. That is a big boy matchup. That is a big boy atmosphere. That is legitimate all across the board. When you never feel that, and all of a sudden you're playing prime time, you're playing against the Kansas City Chiefs, and Patrick Mahomes is staring across from you, you don't know what the hell is going on. So just having players who have been in that universe on the field, that alone is a huge, huge bonus. Huge boom. And MVS, like, yeah, he has that for sure. He has that, been there, done that, kind of situation, and we certainly need that.
That's just a feel for the game that I think, and I don't want to like come off like I'm bashing Shaheed here. Like those are little details though that I think when you watch Shaheed, that there's still like a learning of the position going on, because like he never really played it at a high level until he got to the NFL, and that was kind of one of the things that slowed him down earlier on in his career, was just kind of figuring stuff out and just detailing routes and that. Like he's still learning how to do that, and I think you see it with MVS, and you see the athleticism and the explosiveness with the feel for the game. I think Shaheed at the top end is a higher end athlete, and there's things that he can do that MVS just isn't going to be able to do. But I think, there's a learning curve there, and just kind of having a polished guy show up, like you feel it, and there's a difference. And I think he's making some plays off of that. And yeah, I mean, look, him, like he's handled it better than I thought he was. Someone's going to stop allowing him to score touchdowns, and that might be
Microsoft Teams is taking an absolute beating. I feel like Microsoft Teams is fighting Jake Paul right now. If we had everyone healthy, this is how I would have it. I would have Chris Olave as the 1, MVS as the 2. I would have Rashid returning punts and kicks, and then I would have Rashid and MVS kind of rotating based on what the design is. So if we're doing jet sweeps, we're doing screens, if we're doing burner type situations, I would just kind of flip flop them like for whatever the situation is. I would let them get their chance at all of it. But I would rotate those two. Obviously, 3 wide receiver sets or whatever, it's a little different. But we're mostly going to run 2 wide receiver, 2 tight end, multi-back. So that's what I think the best is. And then eventually, yeah, Rashid, if he develops a little bit, he can be the guy. But I like what MVS does, especially if we had Chris Olave, especially if we had that complement. And then like I said, if we're doing sweeps and motions and screens and whatever, just kind of decide on a play-by-play basis who you want to be on the end of that, whether it's Rashid or MVS. But I'd be cool with. I mean, I'd be real cool if we drafted a top-level, high-end wide receiver, or if we drafted a Brock Bowers type player. I'd be much. I'm not saying that I'm cool with this moving forward, but if Chris Olave wasn't injured, that's how I'd have it set up right now with the roster.
A problem for the offense.
And if Rashid wasn't injured, obviously.
So overall, but I mean, he stepped up and he's playing really, really well. And, it's just kind of a shame they didn't get him the first time they wanted him, now that you see it.
I got a hypothetical, Nick.
All right.
Do you think Dennis Allen sticks with Taysom Hill on Sunday's game after the pick and after the fumble? Because that was one of the most impressive parts of the game to me was, Rizzi's asked about at halftime. He's like, what? No, we got to lean into this guy more. Like, that's our guy. That's our weapon. Like, if it had to be very empowering as a player to know that your coach has your back when you make a couple of critical errors.
I'm totally hypothesizing here, but I think Dennis was pretty vocal with Kubiak on like reeling stuff in, because I just cannot believe it's a coincidence that Allen is gone and all of a sudden our offense looks completely different. And I just can't imagine that Kubiak on his own decided, you know what, let's just not do any of that. Like, let's just keep it all kind of to the letter. Let's just keep it all kind of in. Let's just keep it all kind of just real conservative. It's just hard to imagine that he's got all this stuff ready, but he doesn't unleash it all. Now, maybe it's because of Rattler, maybe, I don't know. But so what I think would have happened was, I think Taysom throws the pick, Taysom fumbles. I think Allen might have told Kubiak, like, hey, let's get back to, just what we do. Let's just get back to football. Let's get back to, the basics. Let's get back to the fundamentals. I think Allen was really quick to do that. I'm, again, totally guessing here. But I think he was really quick to say, let's win this game with our defense. Let's keep it tight. Let's try and control the ball. Let's try and not do anything crazy. And so he probably would have. He probably would have got away from him and got more to just the tried and true, more of like a basic style offense.
Yeah, it's a great question. I would lean toward no. I would lean toward no, but I don't know that Sean would have stuck with him after that too. It always felt like something would go wrong, and that was the end of Taysom. Like he throws a pick and it's over.
Mm-hmm.
Not going to see him again. They aren't going to lean into him. The volume overall was different, and that's what it should be. Like that's how they should be using this guy every single week. And the coolest thing about Taysom now is that it's gone to a point where the conversation has shifted to where people actually understand what he is and how he's being used, and it's not like, oh, too cute when he makes a mistake. Like it's just like, yeah, he's a football player. Football players.
Yeah, it's just who he is. Like I hate that as well. Like the whole it's a gimmick. It's not a gimmick. It's not. There's nothing gimmicky about it. He's just a tight end when asked to be. He's a running back when asked to be. He's it's in a gimmick. It's just a thing. Like it's just a thing. Him running a quarterback power is the same thing as Josh Allen running a quarterback power. That's not a gimmick. Him running as a tight end is the same thing as whatever Mark Andrews or whoever running a tight end route. It's not a gimmick. Is he? So the only thing that I would say maybe a little less of is like the deep ball. A little less of that. If you're gonna throw a deep ball, if you want to take a shot, do it with Carr. But I have no problem with Taysom running routes. I have no problem with Taysom getting carries. I have no problem with any of that stuff.
Make mistakes. I mean, it kind of happens from time to time. But yeah, it was a crazy game. The 75-yard run I saw was like the longest in history for a player, like over like age 32 or something like that. Like I don't know what it was, but like he's doing things we've never seen before, and they need to lean into it. And with the lack of weaponry, like that should be what they're doing every single week. It should.
That's the thing. It's not like if Taysom is taking away from Chris Olave, or if he's taking away from Alvin Kamara, then let's try and figure out the balance here, because we want those guys to have the ball. But when your other options are non-existent, then use the hell out of them. Like I would much rather have Taysom get the extra carries than Jordan Mims. And no hate to Jordan Mims, but that's just how it is. And I would rather have Taysom get the extra receptions than Kevin Austin Jr. or Mason Tipton. So what? Right now, while we have injuries and while we have all that stuff going on, get the ball to Taysom and let him eat.
It should be Alvin, it should be Taysom, and off you go. And that should be how they're building their offensive game plan every single week.
I mean, 100%. It opens up so many other things as well. It's not just when Taysom's getting the football. I mean, it's the threat of what Taysom can do. And if he's back there with AK, the running lanes change. If he's there a quarterback, like the math just changes on what the defense can do because he can, pull the football down. He can pick up yards on the ground, even if it is a design pass play. And so I think even when he's, handing the ball off, he can just really impact everybody on the offense.
That's the thing I would like to see more. I would like to see more of the read option with him and Alvin, where he hands the ball off to Alvin. That is the one thing where I think we need to try and get to the next level. Is I feel like when Taysom's in that situation, he's always running the ball. And a lot of the times we telegraph it. We motion out Alvin or we motion out whoever's in the backfield and just Taysom just power, quarterback power. But if he starts to actually hand that ball off, and then we start wrinkling in the read option where Taysom can keep it or hand it off, or it's a fake kind of like a play action and he can throw it to in a short intermediate type situation. If that is the end game for that set, that is insane. But Nick kind of hit on this, which I kind of hit on. But before, when Jamal Williams was getting extra carries, or Adam Prentice was getting extra carries, or Jordan Mims or Kendra Miller, even the way I look at it, the top end, the highest level thing that can happen, if it's 3rd and 1 and you give the ball to Adam Prentice, or let's say Jamal Williams, if it's 3rd and 1 and you give the ball to Jamal Williams, what do you think is the highest possible level of what can happen? Think about it from a Saints side of things and a defense side of things. The defense is thinking he's running straight. He's running straight, that's it. That's all we got to focus on. The offensive side of the thing, you're thinking, I just hope he picks up the first down. I just hope he gets 1 yard, 2 yards. If Taysom is doing that, if Taysom's in the backfield, the defense is thinking, damn, he could throw, he could certainly run, and if he does run, if he's given any kind of room, he could take this thing to the house. The offense is thinking Taysom's going to get the first down because he always gets positive yards, seemingly, and he could take it to the house. Like, the ceiling and the variables and all of that is just so much higher when Taysom has the ball, or Alvin has the ball, or Olave has the ball, or whoever has the ball. So, and maybe I just think I'm trying to really optimize like every play, but I would get rid of all those wasted plays of the Jordan Mims and the Kendra Miller and the whatever. Like, get the ball to your playmakers and see what happens. And that's kind of what San Francisco does. Like, San Francisco's like, at some point, we're going to get the ball to our best players, whether it's Deebo Samuel, whether it's Brandon Ayuk, whether it's Chris McCaffrey, whether it's George Kittle. They are predominantly who we're getting the ball to. Every once in a while, someone else might touch it. But as far as the Saints running the ball, I would run Alvin or I'd run Taysom. That's it. I wouldn't run anyone else. No one else. Nope, not happening. I would just rotate between those guys. If Alvin needs a spell, it's Taysom. That's it. Why waste a play? That's how I look at it.
Absolutely. I mean, the way they're using him, it's kind of crazy that it's taken this long. He's been in the league for a long time now, too. Like, I don't even, what is it, 7, 8 years? Like, at this point, like,
8 years.
It's crazy. It's taken this long for somebody to kind of like put it all together. Like, even like Sean had the vision. He loved the dude. Like, all credit to Sean for finding him. And if it's not for Sean, Taysom's NFL career is probably over years ago.
Yeah,
like, it kept it
100%,
going. And
100%.
All credit to him. But like, it's crazy that somebody came in here like after all that and was like, no. Like, this is how it should be done. And like, it's just it's so much better. And there's stuff they're doing in these games where you're like, that will, like, what are they going to build off of that? How is that going to progress throughout the season? My biggest shame for this year, the thing that bothers me the most is that it feels like there was like a 4-week period that was just kind of lost on the offense, where
100%.
It's just kind of McCoy's out, then Derek.
Yeah, McCoy is out. You have 6 linemen out, whether it's starters or backups or whatever. You got Derek out, 6 linemen out, Olave's out, Shaheed is out. Like, when that's happening and it's Spencer Rattler, Connor McGovern, who the hell ever is playing guard, you got, Mason Tipton and Bud Means, and you're facing off against the Broncos. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Like, those are that's absolutely lost. Taysom the thing is interesting with Taysom, the thing that I think about is Kubiak, like, the thing with Taysom, the appropriate way I believe you do it, if you're Kubiak and the Saints, is I think that is the engine to the offense. That's where everything starts. Everything starts with that, like, heavy package, and it's all off of, it's almost like the triple option, where it's not the triple option, but it's almost like that, where you're always in that kind of base, heavy set, and then it's either the defense never knows, like, all right, is Taysom getting the ball? Is Alvin getting the ball? Is Derek throwing the ball? Is he throwing to the backs? Is Taysom a tight end on this play? Is there play action? There's motion. Oh, all of a sudden now MVS is down the field. Or, all of a sudden now it's a quarterback power with Taysom. All of a sudden now it's Taysom and Alvin running the read option. And I think we should really lean into that. Now, we are deep into this season, so then the question is, well, do you do that next year when Taysom is 35 or whatever he's going to be? Like, all of a sudden, is that the engine? But with this roster, I think that should be the engine. I think with this roster, that is the best thing this team can do, is build everything around that kind of misdirection, that kind of scheme. And it really is similar to what this offense already is. It's really just like Taysom instead of Deebo Samuel, and Taysom's a better runner. So then you factor in more of that, like Taysom running from the quarterback position or whatever. But that is what I want to see. I want to see way less of kind of what we got into in those Rattler games, where all of a sudden it was much more of, okay, Rattler's in these 3 wide receiver sets. He's trying to throw the ball around, like, whether it's screens or whatever, or Alva's just kind of getting the ball and kind of in a very safe, like, running style. Like, I don't think that's it. I think it's closer to what we saw against Cleveland. Is how I think the Saints should operate every single game.
Carr's hurt and you're not really building anything, and then the Carolina game's kind of a throwaway. Really, it's like a 5-week period. And this kind of felt like a continuation off of what we were seeing like up until week 4, you know, the first Atlanta game. I thought the offense was still creative and rolling, and now this kind of like picked up where it left off. It's a shame we didn't kind of get to see that like story tell out the whole entire year with like more healthy players, because I really do think that there's something here with this offensive staff. I really do think they're good.
Yeah, 100%.
I know.
You know, there was some questioning of faith there in the middle, and then you look back and it's like, well, their whole line was injured and they're playing backup quarterbacks. Like, of course it was terrible. But now that they got a couple guys back, like it looks great. And, you know, I don't know. It might end at the end of the year, and who knows what the next group's going to do. But like, I really do think there's something there with this staff.
And it is a bummer because I agree with you about Kubiak.
And honestly, in a weird way, I think that is one of the biggest reasons why I am kind of rooting for Rizzi to be the head coach next year. Because it means that Kubiak is going to stay, and it means Janocko is going to stay, and it means this philosophy is going to stay, and it means this staff is going to stay. And I think there is something there. I think they are good enough. I love watching this offense when it's rolling. Like, I love watching the offense, and not just the results. Like, obviously, yeah, you love when you're winning, but I love watching what this offense does against Cleveland. I loved against Dallas and Carolina, and when they are doing what they do, the design and all of that, it's just fun. It's just awesome to watch. It's a good product. And, you know, I would hate to see all of that scrapped just because of some injuries or whatever. So part of me, I know I've said like, hey, I think Mike Vrabel would be a great coach. Like, and I do. You know, he's linked to every job right now. But part of me is kind of rooting for Rizzi to finish this thing out, to come back next year just to keep that staff, because I feel like the staff knows. I feel like they seem comfortable with the roster that we have. A lot of those players like Taysom, like Alvin, are coming back next year. No doubt about it. So we don't have to wonder like, hey, what the hell, what's this next staff going to do with Taysom Hill? What's this next staff going to do with Alvin Kamara? They're in like the perfect system. So why mess that up? You know, so I hope they get to continue with what they've built so far.
So let's then, because like this is the only time, or maybe not, but this could be the only time where we can ask this question. Let's get way out over our skis. Because I said, you know, I don't care. I don't want anybody, like, it's time for the full reset. I don't want anybody that's even sniffed the champagne air, blah, 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 whatever. However, in Rizzi, you have a very proven NFL coach. Like, you know, he is one of the best special teams coaches in the entire league, has been for a very long time. He now he's getting that head coaching opportunity. Is there a world out there where, because you kind of have a rebuild you're going to have to do anyway, does it make sense to give Rizzi a shot? And it sucks for him because he's not going to be getting like he's not taking over a great situation. But like we've talked about, you're not going to attract the top candidate to this situation.
Let me ask you this. Where would you rather coach next year? Dallas? New Orleans? Jacksonville? Give me New Orleans. Jacksonville has a $300 million bust at quarterback. Dallas has Jerry Jones, and they have a $60 million a year quarterback in Dak Prescott with nothing else, with Mike Zimmer, who's about to be fired, with a horrific defense. Like, the Saints, out of those three, I would much rather have the Saints situation. So Rizzi isn't exactly inheriting, he's not inheriting the Jaguars. He's not inheriting the Cowboys. He's not inheriting even the Giants. Like, he's in a relatively decent situation that all the players love him. The team has full faith in him. He knows the staff. Like, not bad. Not a bad situation. And it does make sense, I think, for the Saints to stick with Rizzi if the rest of the season works out right. If we start losing games and this all falls apart, then go somewhere else. But if Rizzi finishes strong, I'm all for, and the offense keeps playing like this, where they're averaging 7 yards per play or 6.5 yards per play, I'm all for keeping this together. I mean, I just don't see the tremendous upside with doing the other.
So does it make sense during this kind of rebuilding phase to give Rizzi a shot and see what he can do and hold on to a guy like Kubiak and some of these other pieces?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's going to have to prove it for sure. I mean, but there's a path where you could prove it. I'm going to go back to what I said before. Like, I think you got to win against, the Giants and the Raiders, obviously. Like, those are two gimmies. And then I think you got to get, a couple of impressive wins here. If he does that, I mean, there is a resume that you have to consider. Even if you were to, like, win out, though, like, I still think you have to run your process, interview everybody.
Yeah, you do your due diligence. I mean, you still take a look around and you say, like, what's this look like? Like, what does it look like with Mike Vrabel? What does it look like with blank coach or whoever? You still interview, you still do the whole thing. You don't finish the season the next day say, all right, guys, Darren Rizzi's the head coach. Like, you definitely go through your process. But there are some pretty serious positives if this run continues. And I'm not saying undefeated. I'm not saying win out. But if we do lose one more game the rest of the way or 2 games the rest of the way, like, you do have to kind of think, like, man, is it worth throwing all this away? Like, what are we bringing in? It might be worth it to just stick with Rizzi and Kubiak and all of them.
And, like, make sure you are making the best decision for your team. Take advantage of the opportunity. But I think there's a scenario where he makes himself a strong candidate. And, the DNA of this franchise really is that they like comfortable, familiar things. And if he gives them a reason to stay comfortable and familiar, like, I think there's a realistic chance of him having the job. But, like, the player buy-in couldn't be any higher right now. And yeah, that's easy when you win 2 in a row. Like, let's see what it feels like after a loss.
Right,
like, they're still, singing the same things and all that. But I think they will be. I mean, I often use Alvin Kamara as, like, the barometer of the team. Like, he speaks the truth. He speaks for the locker room. He isn't afraid of, like, saying something that is going to piss somebody off. And for 3 years, he spoke on the record openly, almost immediately, with skepticism about the previous regime and, the details and all that. And there was no, you can go back. It was like immediate. It was like 2 weeks into that. And he was like, all right, this is BS. Like, it's not working the way it should. And, like, his buy-in on Rizzi could not be higher. Like, he loves him. Like, he loves the attention to detail. He loves.
Yeah, it sounds like Rizzi, in the limited 2 weeks that I've heard him talk, and I've heard people around the team talk, it sounds like Rizzi is really advanced when it comes to the, like, operational stuff. I mean, the practices, the locker room, all the changes he immediately made, those operational efficiencies, that is a huge part of a head coach. Like, him understanding, hey, these guys' lockers need to be next to each other, these guys need to move, like, immediately making that change, immediately changing the structure of practice and the structure of warm-ups and the structure of how they do everything, and, even how he handles timeouts. Like, he seems to be much more aware of timeouts than Allen. Like, Rizzi, you can tell he wants his timeouts. He wants his timeouts for a reason. Allen was seemingly, he almost forgot about the timeouts. Like, sometimes he was calling timeouts without timeouts. Sometimes he was calling them too early. Sometimes he'd call them and look around like, who called that, when only he can call them. Like, Rizzi seems much more aware of just the operational side of things. And it kind of makes sense because a special teams guy, that kind of is, like, I feel like they would be closer to that, like, operational attention to detail versus someone else. But I think Rizzi's been he's more so far, he's more than just a vibes coach. He kind of gets that Dan Campbell rah vibes kind of guy because he's a fun soundbite, but he seems to me to be much more than that. He seems to be much more of like a true head coach. And I mean, Rizzi has also been the assistant head coach or the associate head coach role multiple times, so he's got some of that, like, he's just he's an onion. He's got some serious layers.
Kind of how he relates to people. And I think that's kind of the feel throughout the locker room. So, I mean, there is a scenario where he becomes a truly.
What's Jake looking at? Is he looking at my fantasy football team? Because that's how I look every single week when I'm looking at my fantasy football team put up 65 points again and I get last again. Like, Jake is going through it over here. What is he looking at?
Real candidate. They looked at him the last time too. So, I think the leadership qualities are there, but he's going to have to prove it on the field. And, so far, I think he's doing that. If you beat the Rams, I think it becomes like a very real possibility at that point. It becomes a real talking point that you aren't over your skis. It's like, wow, is this actually happening if they do
100%.
that?
Wow, just
100%. If they beat the Rams, oh yeah. If they beat the Rams, it's going to be all hands on deck. playoffs, division, Rizzi, we're rocking and rolling again. 100%. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me know in the comments below what you think. Good video, good stuff here. I got to know what Jacob was looking at. All right. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next